This will show how I replaced the top vinyl of my hot tub cover. This picture was taken prior to the replacement. Actually, the original top is still there, and I simply bonded new marine grade vinyl, which I got at a boat shop, on top of the original cover. Hot tub covers are supposed to be good for 3 to 5 years, and that's about what I get out of mine, which gets lots of sun and started getting brittle and cracking. And this is even though I was pretty conscientious about cleaning and then protecting it with Formula 303. The rest of the cover was in really good shape, so it seemed like a waste to buy a new one just because of the top. My tub is on the small side, but still a new cover is $300 to $400. First, some background on this repair. After the first big rain of the season, the cover became much heavier and almost impossible to lift on and off the tub. And the reason was that water was pooling in the space between the foam insulation and the bottom of the cover. And that's the arrow. After a time, the entire foam can become soaked. Mine wasn't that bad. And because there's no more air spaces in the foam, you lose the insulating effect. You can replace the foam, but unless you find the point where water is getting in, the new foam will eventually get soaked like the first one. So at first I thought the seam separating the right and left sections was letting water in, and I covered that with a strip of vinyl. In a second, I'll talk about how I bonded the new vinyl to the original. But even with that strip, the water was still getting inside the cover. So I pulled the entire cover apart and removed the foam from the inside of the cover and let that dry in the sun. Then I taped up some of the holes I found in the plastic vapor barrier, which covers the foam. And with the entire cover off, I also noticed that the entire vinyl top had become really brittle and porous and basically almost falling apart. So I suspected water was getting inside not only at the top seam at the top, but through the entire top. So I decided to recover the entire top. And for more of the same vinyl, I went back to Seaworthy Canvas, which is a boat shop in Alameda, California. Based on the size of my tub, one piece of the marine grade vinyl would cover over the entire top. Seaworthy had vinyl with a cloth backing, but suggested that I use vinyl without that for a better bond with the original cover. The new vinyl I got had a smooth and dimpled side, and Seaworthy suggested putting it on with the smooth side up, which wouldn't allow as much debris to collect on the top as the dimpled side might. The hot tub's original vinyl was stitched double thickness, but I just used the single thickness. Now to bond the new vinyl to the old, Seaworthy suggested I use contact cement, and I picked up DAP Weldwood Original Contact Cement. And I ended up using 3 1-quart cans, and they were about $11 each. To apply the cement, I got a plastic spreader, 3 inches wide and with U-shaped notches. And to transfer the cement from the can to the spreader, I used a small disposable food tray. Seaworthy's roll of vinyl was 64 inches wide, and that allowed a few inches of the necessary overhang on the narrowest part of the tub, which is 57 inches. And later I'll talk about why the overhang is important. This picture shows a reference line and a cut line, and I'll also get into those in a second. The widest part of my tub is 81.5 inches, and Seaworthy cut about 85 inches off their roll. Next, I put the reassembled old cover with the foam back inside onto the hot tub and centered my new vinyl on top of that. With a felt marker, I traced onto the underside of the new vinyl, running along the outer perimeter of the old cover. Then I removed the new vinyl from the tub and traced onto it a second line, which is a couple inches wider than the first line. The second line becomes the cut line. I traced this cut line using a felt marker taped to something for reference. I happen to have a spatula for that. And large scissors cut the vinyl easily enough. Then I put the cut vinyl back on top of the old cover and centered it. I put weights on top of the new vinyl to keep it from moving around while I worked. Starting at one corner, I folded back about a foot of vinyl and used a weight to keep it from flopping back down. Now I began applying cement to just the section I folded back and also to the old vinyl underneath that. And I'll go into some detail on working with contact cement, so sorry if you already know about that stuff. So I applied the cement first to the old vinyl, and that's on the right side here, then the new vinyl. But don't bond the two sides together now. The cement needs to dry about 15 or 20 minutes for the cement to become really tacky. So after drying, the cement on the new vinyl was still glossy, which is what you want, but the cement on the original cracked and porous side of the top became dull, and that's shown here because it had soaked up a lot of the cement and now needed a second coat. This picture is after applying the second coat and then letting it dry for 15 to 20 minutes. And it's still glossy on both sides, and so both sides are ready to bond. And you have to bond very carefully. And I roll the new vinyl onto the old slowly and real carefully. And once the two sides make contact, even just for a second, they're almost impossible to get apart. And I discovered this, or learned the hard way about that, when the wind kicked up and folded the new vinyl over on itself before I'd positioned it. And it took a lot of strength to pull the vinyl apart. But because the glued side isn't visible when you're done, it might be okay to risk cutting apart the two pieces and starting over. Multiple coats of the cement are okay. It's okay to use multiple coats after each coat is dry. And the new vinyl top won't be subjected to very much twisting and torque, so the bond probably doesn't have to be that perfect anyway. Contact cement is really messy and hard to remove. This picture is Citriglow, and I found that Citriglow, which is 100% organic, in case you want to drink it, will remove spilled cement from the unbonded vinyl without damaging it, and also from fingers. Soap and water and even alcohol doesn't seem to remove it. You need to apply the cement and bond one section at a time. That's because it'd be almost impossible to correctly position and bond the entire new cover in one shot. In this picture, the first section to the right has been bonded, and I've applied cement to the second section. And on the left is the plastic tub I used to transfer the cement to the spreader. Here I'm ready to do the last two sections, which are a little larger than the first sections. That's because as I got more comfortable positioning, I could do larger portions. And I actually began pouring the cement from the plastic container directly onto the surfaces because I had much more surface to work with. If I'd started this way, I could have bonded the entire top in maybe a half day. Use bricks or anything heavy to hold the new vinyl in place as you're applying the cement. So starting out with some overhang is important because by the time I'd worked my way across the top, the positioning of the vinyl had shifted by a quarter or half an inch. At first I left the overhang as it is to make sure water wasn't getting in through the seam, the outer seam on the original top. Eventually, though, I trimmed off most of the overhang, leaving about a quarter inch. You'll see that this new top surface isn't quite as smooth as the original. A couple of reasons for that. First, I used only single thickness of the new vinyl, and then inconsistencies in the amount of cement I used were a little noticeable. But compared to the old vinyl, it's way more waterproof, and it's way cheaper than replacing the entire cover.